The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
This is Haymaker Combat Sports. Hear it here, coming straight from the source. Only with the real, they ain't here to dress it up. Sweet science, MMA, you can get it all from us. Trust, 5 stars cause it's live. And through the fight game, we can guide ya. Slick talking, putting them in caution. Passing all the goals cause the audio is awesome. What you waiting for? Spread the word, tell a friend. This the podcast where all of the discussion ends. When they start going strike for strike, this the show that'll tell you what you seen in the fight. They ain't playing on the mic, this a welcome to the show. Warm it up for the squad, Haymaker of the bros. I'm a bow wow, you can hear it from the pros. It's Haymaker Combat Sports, time to roll.
Welcome back to Haymaker Combat Sports, powered by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. I'm your host, EJ Reed, joined by my fellow co-hosts, Aaron Admire, Steve Johnson. Fellas, we are back with our first official full-length episode for the new year. How we doing?
Well, you're in Missouri. You know how it is. It's cold, man. Like, it's almost 0 degrees, and that feels good compared to what it's been. The lowest I seen at my house was like -18. Jeez. With the wind, it was like -40 the other day. You know, we had the Chiefs game on Saturday. School's been canceled. Everything's been shut down. Before we got on, me and you talked about random snowstorm yesterday. Like, it's this weather, I'm over it already, and it's just January, man. We got like a possible 2-3 months of this left.
Yeah, the cold's for the birds. How did y'all fare during that impromptu snowstorm yesterday?
I was out Ubering in it, man. People can't drive. My first Uber was a minivan, so he was all right. But my Uber on the way home was a Ford Taurus. And when he came to pick me up, he slid past where I was at, and he had to go turn around, and he got stuck turning around. Like, it was just all bad.
Steve?
Yeah, I went out there once going to the gas station, and thank God I got 4-wheel drive. It wasn't a problem with me at all, but I've seen people easing on the brakes going down the hill and traveling around, so this ain't nothing to be playing with.
Yeah. Today, 1 month from today, I'll be back on the road driving. I'll have my Jeep on the road.
Oh, yeah? Counting down.
Yep.
That's what's up. Are you going to go on any local road trips around the state?
Well, I'm going to be limited to where I can drive until June. I got to get a limited driver's license, and I can only go certain places on certain days, but I can go somewhere every day. I'm going to go even if I don't have to. Like, I can go to Walmart one day, the grocery store another day, Target. Like, I'm just going to be driving to drive, man.
That's what's up, man. I'm going to be back on the road. That's what we like to hear. But as far as that snow goes, man, I'm from down south. I hate the snow. So if I don't have to go anywhere, I stay my black ass inside. And
yeah, you from Carolina? Is that really considered down south in the Carolinas?
Yeah, South Carolina. That's like definitely a Confederate state. Like the South. Like we didn't have cold winters growing up. The coldest it get would be like high 40s at the coldest.
For real? I thought it got cold out there.
Maybe some parts of North Carolina because you got the mountains and Appalachia, but nah, grew up in a beach town. We're not used to that. So upstate, a little bit, upstate South Carolina, but I'm from the low country, so that's the South. Like I'm only 3 hours away from, well, my parents are, they're only 3 hours away from Jacksonville, Florida. So it's like not that far from Florida.
Man, I ain't up on my geography. I thought South Carolina was farther north. I thought it was up a little bit, but yeah, it's down there. You're right. You ain't too far. You know, you wouldn't be too far from Rucker if you was home.
Yeah, like, it's the South, and I'm not used to any snowing. Thank goodness I get to work from home, so I just stayed inside while it was snowing and let a little bit of it melt away. And I went to the store earlier, but it was not much snow. I just had to dust it off my car and keep it moving. But hopefully it's not any other big snowstorms. Usually it snows a few times before March, but like Adam said, it's only January and we got that already. I was hoping it would be a mild winter. we'll see,
I
man.
remember like it was like 8-9 years ago. It snowed on May 6th in Missouri.
Jeez.
So yeah,
When was that?
it was like 8-9 years ago. I remember it was like May 6th. It freaking snowed.
That's no bueno. May, that's supposed to be, you're supposed to be getting May flowers in May.
Right. And like opening day for baseball, when I went to Royals opening day, that was in April a couple years ago, and it was rain, a little bit of snow and sleet. Like Missouri weather. I mean, I bitch about it, but everybody kind of has to be used to it. You're in Missouri, like it's always done this.
Yeah, but aren't some winters a little bit more milder than other winters?
Yeah, I don't remember it getting this cold in the last few years, man. Like this is cold.
I can't believe you said it was -18. Around here, it got to like -6. I don't know if ain't that right, Steve? I was checking on it. That's the coldest I saw it get around here.
-8, -6. That's
Yeah. And I know you're a little bit further west. Maybe that's what it was, Admire.
Yeah, coming off these Kansas flatlands over here, man, get that wind whipping through here. It was a lot colder here for sure. And like you guys are closer to my lake house, and I got the camera down there. I was checking it. It barely even snowed over there and shit. So yeah, I don't think you guys got it as bad as we did.
Yeah, definitely for those listening or watching, make sure you stay inside. You don't want to get frostbitten out there and hypothermia. But it's cold outside, but it is heating up in the world of mixed martial arts lately. Me and Steve did a quickie show on that Apex card they had where Walker lost to Ankalaev, and there may be some implications with that. But this weekend, we have a card that we'll get into later. But before that, like we always do with these preview shows, let's get into news stories that may be inside or outside of the cage. And one that came across my radar, I don't know if you fellas saw this, but they announced the first super show for the PFL and Bellator merger. And I think this report came from Ariel Hawani. It's called PFL-Bellator Supercard, and it's set for February 24th in Saudi Arabia. We all know the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they like to cut the check, so I'm sure they dropped off a big bag for this event. And the card that they announced so far, according to Ariel Hawani, it's going to be the PFL heavyweight champ, Ryan Bader. No, my bad. Kenan Fiera versus the Bellator heavyweight champ, Ryan Bader. And then for the middleweight champion, Johnny Eblen for Bellator versus PFL light heavyweight champion. That's two different divisions, so I don't know. I guess apparently they're fighting at 185. Impa Kazgane. Hopefully I'm not butchering his name. And then at featherweight, we got Patricio Pitbull representing Bellator versus the PFL featherweight champion, Jesus Pinedo. And the Bellator welterweight champ, Jason Jackson versus the PFL welterweight champ, Magomed Hiramov. So that was the main card, but then they announced some other cards. You had other fights on the card. You got Clay Collar versus AJ McKee at lightweight. That'll be interesting. I know this one y'all will like. Thiago Santos versus Yoel Romero at light heavyweight announced for that card.
That's a banger.
Then we have the grandson of a legend, Biagio Ali Walsh, is facing Chris Morris. That's Muhammad Ali's grandson. And then Clarissa Shields was announced for that card, who's from boxing fame, undefeated boxer, and she's transitioned, but they hadn't named an opponent for her. So what are y'all excitement level for this card that was announced?
I mean, that's huge. UFC 300 is coming up, and that's supposed to be the event of a lifetime. But this Bellator PFL is shaping up. I mean, this is their big staple card, doing a champion versus champion like this. It's the biggest names in PFL against the biggest names from Bellator and mix them up. I mean, usually Bellator, they'll throw together a fight card that has one of their champions on it, kind of like all other organizations. This is all champions and just their highest, best fighters. You know, the Ryan Bader on there with Johnny Eblen on there, Yoel Romero, AJ McKee. Like, you have all the big heavy hitters from the Bellator world on one card. This is going to push them, you know, more mainstream. You know, they were already pretty mainstream, but I think this is really going to put them on the map.
Steve?
Definitely. It has a lot of interest in there, especially that Yoel Romero. And what I think is, and I always keep forgetting that Ngannou has a contract or fight somewhere lingering we're going to see one day. I feel like all it takes is one or two champions from UFC or still at their momentum at the height of their career to finish out their UFC contract and say, hey, either they do see a smaller fish they can just tear up for lesser money, and then that might start the transition into a real competitive tool against the UFC. And I can see all it takes is probably 2 or 3 fighters transitioning over there. I can definitely see it.
So
yeah. And what I'm scared of now is, you know, is they're putting on this super show. They got to follow that up with a decent show. And is the winner of this Ryan Bader and, you know, Pereira, is that going to be Ngannou's first, you know, MMA fight for PFL? Is he going to automatically get the champ of those?
I'm glad you brought that up. So I have a few things to ask, and some of them is based off what you just said. So as fight fans, you know, we're pretty hardcore fight fans, so we're going to get excited for this. But does this card move the needle for a casual? Because not a lot of big names as far as like mainstream. Of course, we all know Ryan Bader. We all know Yoel Romero. So they moved the needle a little bit. But overall, do y'all think this card moves the needle?
I don't think so. You know, as far as you said, like casuals, if the casuals don't already know who these guys are and how big this card is, they're not going to tune in anyway. I mean, these guys are all vets. We all know how they fight, and it's going to be good fights. It's going to be entertaining, but I don't think they are going to bring anything extra than what they normally do. I hope they do. I hope this really sets it off. I hope this puts them, like I said earlier, at that higher mainstream level, even more mainstream, puts them on the map, burst onto the scene. Hey, this is the new PFL-Bellator. Like, we're putting on the fights. We got the names. Come over here and we'll pay you.
Steve?
Definitely. And I think all energy waves are temporary. So I think maybe temporarily they're bagging on for my fighting game fans. You know, if you got a crossover, Capcom versus Marvel versus Capcom, or Capcom versus SNK, this one is more temporarily because you're seeing the best of almost each weight class at this one event. So this will be an interest for people to see, oh, Bellator and PFL are mixing in together. I want to see what this looks like. But once we get the champions established, I think that ride is going to die down after this event. And then they're going to have to get actual competitor fighters that actually have eyes on them.
Ooh,
So
and you just said something that made me think, though. I think this is the first card that's ever showcased every weight division. You know, usually you'll have a card with a couple heavyweights, couple, you know, middleweights, maybe some bantamweights, but this goes from the top to the bottom, all the way down flyweight, featherweight, women's lightweight, up through all the way to heavyweight. Like, this would be a good card, you know, for a casual to watch, or somebody interested in, you know, expanding their MMA knowledge and like getting to know the fighters. And this would be a good, you know, fight card for that.
I agree with that. So before we get into the Ngannou elephant that's in the room, like Admar was talking about earlier, once you put on this quote unquote super card, what direction do you go from here? Like, do you two have any ideas? Like, what do you go for after you put all, basically you're putting all the cards, all the chips on in the middle and going out on this Saudi Arabia card? Where do you go from here? I'll start with you.
I hope I hope what they do, if they're business smart, which they are, I hope they do this to shake out who's the champ. This is to combine it, get the champs. Then you start like a bracket tournament Grand Prix type for others to fight to get back towards the top. I don't think you can do that with heavyweight. I think Ngannou, they're instantly going to give that guy the title shot whenever he wants it. There's rumblings of him maybe doing another boxing match. There was talks of Wilder coming over and fighting him in MMA. I don't know how quick they'll do it, but realistically, you got to think that Ngannou has that, he's got that ace of spades trump card that he can play anytime, kind of money in the bank style. I want to fight for the title now. So they always got to keep that window open. So they can't really start a heavyweight Grand Prix yet, but all the other weight classes can.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Before we dig deeper into the Ngannou aspect of it, Steve, like, where do you think they go after putting this quote unquote supercard?
It's very hard, and I think a lot is chips are bagged on Ngannou, because I feel like Ngannou is the person that is the rock that you throw down a well to see how deep it is. And as a MMA fan, I kind of measured the elite through UFC fighters, and the only way we know who is competitor outside of the UFC is, so to speak, maybe rumors in the gym, or if they're actually competing with these people in the gym. Other than that, I feel like Ngannou is the only measuring stick that somebody's been in the UFC very recently. And I think we all believe he can destroy most of those people in PFL. A lot is relied on Ngannou, and I feel like they need more measuring stick or sort of rocks down the well to see the masses who watch MMA, especially eyes on PFL, who are formidable fighters, who is equivalent to we might want to see in the UFC, or if we have caliber fighters like that besides Ngannou. And to me, I feel like the only people are Ngannou and, I feel like, although I think Yoel lost, I think he's still top tier caliber of that organization.
So let's talk about this Ngannou situation. So last week they announced officially in Saudi Arabia on March 8th, it's going to be Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou over there in Saudi Arabia. So I'll ask y'all this. Do we even see Ngannou fighting the PFL at all, or is he just going to keep getting these boxing bags? I'll start off for you, Admire.
He'll probably do that boxing in March, and then I would expect to see him do an MMA fight by the end of the year. They didn't make that big investment to keep letting him go do boxing matches. I mean, they're going to give him some slack, let him go get the money while he can, but eventually they've got to pull his card and say, hey, we signed you because you're this fighter. You were supposed to represent our brand. We need you to come over here and do that. So I think you see him fight maybe next summer, maybe end of year card.
Steve?
Yeah, and I also see the other side of that. If they're thinking, if they see the numbers of what the Tyson Fury fight did, maybe be like, well, damn, let him go 2-3 more boxing fights. Nobody expected him. Nobody barely knew him outside the MMA community after boxing. Now the boxing community got him, eyes on him. Maybe those eyes might shift over until when he finally does an MMA fight.
So Admire was saying that he thinks he might fight later this year or the summer. But if I'm Ngannou, why would I even come back to MMA and PFL if I'm making $20-30 million in boxing? Like you said, he signed a contract, but why don't I just get out of my contract? And if y'all gonna sue me, I could just pay that lawsuit off, and with all this money I'm making in boxing, why go back to MMA when I'm fighting Ryan Bader, who only MMA fans know? Or if I could keep getting these boxing bags, I could fight Wilder next. After Wilder, I could go to Andy Ruiz. I could go to Usyk. Like, why go back to MMA fighting these smaller fights for maybe $1 million? Admire?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what all's in his contract. I don't know how it's written, but we've seen many MMA fighters that are under contract retire. And then, once they retire, their contract's kind of just canceled. And then we see them fighting at a lower promotion or doing a boxing thing, doing a bare knuckle thing. So I don't know how his contract's written, but he might be able to do that. Just say, hey, I'm a retired MMA fighter, and I'm just going to keep going over here and doing boxing. I'm the way his contract, he scored that, he got paid very well. So he was probably smart enough to put that in there.
I don't know. I don't know how his contract is structured, but I know if you retire and you still got fights left, it resumes once you unretire. So they have to either release you or you can't fight for another organization. As far as what
I don't see them releasing him though, because I can't remember how much his contract was, but they didn't pay him all that money just to use his name and not have him fight at least once.
I mean, I think the way he had his contract set up is, I don't know the exact details of it, but it had a caveat where he could box. I don't know if they had a limit on what he can box. That's something that we'd have to see the fine print for, but I don't know. I think he could just keep boxing if he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, if he was smart in the contract, he would have put, if boxing is going to net me a bag more than what MMA is, then I am allowed to go do the boxing. That would only make sense. I'm allowed to go there if I'm going to make more. So, I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it all shakes out. But if he's already got a boxing match planned, then there's no MMA going down with him until after March.
Yeah, and Steve, like I said, like why should he come back to MMA if he's getting $20-30 million in boxing?
Right. And then it's all confusing, because if you knew you were going to box in the first place, why make the contract to where you can do all the boxing fights and you want? You say, hey, I'm ready to do the PFL contract. Why sign it? And I think there must be some confirmed things. Who knows? Maybe the Conor boxing route went with him. They get a little piece of the cake from his boxing bouts. We would have to look at the specifics of the contracts to totally put a finger on it. But like I said, it must be a nice deal from what these fights are being scheduled. Maybe I can do many boxing fights in the amount of time in the contract I'm getting before 2.5 years, who knows? But it seems by what he's showing us physically, he has a nice deal where he's calling the shots.
Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if after this fight card, he steps in there and calls out the winner of whoever wins, the heavyweight fight. If I'm Ngannou, I would be happy to go in there and face Ryan Bader. There's not one thing Ryan Bader has that even could put Ngannou in trouble. So, I mean, he could knock out an MMA fight, make them happy, become the champion, and go back to boxing.
But I don't even know why he signed with the PFL, to be honest. If he knew he was gonna box, because he takes the Ryan Bader fight. Now he has to train in wrestling, and he has bad knees and training all these other aspects of martial arts when he can just stand up and box, which is his bread and butter, is hitting and knocking people out. I just don't see the upside of him doing PFL at all, because he's gonna get $1 million bag at most, and he's got to train put all this wear and tear on his body training more so than just standing up and boxing. I don't get it, to be honest.
I mean, in my opinion, I think what happened is that Tyson Fury fight was supposed to be a one-off, and nobody expected him to do as good as he did. And now, on my fight card, he won. He won when I did the scores. So it was like, oh, shit, this dude can box. So I think it was supposed to be a one-off, and it turned out this guy's a great boxer, and he got paid a lot of money. Keep doing it.
I don't think he won. He didn't win on my card, but he did a whole lot better than I expected, and he won. He's banking rounds. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, he probably did better than a lot of people expected. It's supposed to be a one-off. They thought he was gonna get washed. But I mean, to be honest, like I don't care if he doesn't ever do MMA, because I don't want to see him against any of these PF, even Ryan Bader, because he just knock his block off. Unless he goes back to UFC and we get the John Jones fight, I don't care if he fights MMA anymore. The Tom
You're
Aspinall
right.
fight would be intriguing, but we'd have to see the Jones fight. Like that's the only fight I want to see him MMA first.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, at this point, I'm just like, there's certain fighters you're like, man, I don't want them to retire. I want to see them fight again. And Ngannou, it's like, man, I like seeing him box. I don't need to see him. Like, I'm not going to miss him if he retires from MMA.
Like, of course, the number one match, I want to see him at any sport. I want to see him and John Jones. But if I don't get him and John Jones, I'd rather see him against Joshua, which we're about to see. I'd rather see him against Wilder before I see him fight a Ryan Bader, even Andrew Ruiz or Usyk. So,
yeah, I'm more intrigued by those matchups than anybody but John Jones.
Yeah, so if we don't see him in PFL, I won't be heartbroken. But we'll see what happens with that in the future. But what story do you have on your radar, Admire?
Well, it broke today. Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, UFC 300 for the BMF title. That's not a fight that I saw really coming. Kind of makes sense. I mean, Max Holloway's a durable guy. Gaethje, wild man, so that'll be a good one. And then added to UFC 300 is Jim Miller and Bobby Green. So it's shaping up.
That's an interesting fight for Jim Miller to take. It makes sense because Bobby Green's a little bit older than me. I think he's 36, 37. So it's a guy closer to his age, but Bobby Green's a violent guy, and Jim Miller, I mean, he proved us this past weekend that he can still go. I'm surprised he took that fight, but he watched the dude, and there's a guy younger than Bobby Green. So we all knew he was going to get on his cards because he's been on UFC 200 and 100, and the goal was to get on 300. So I'm glad they finally put that in place, and it'll be a good scrap. And the BMF title with Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway. Is Poirier on that card too? Is that the card he was announced the face? Was it Gamrot he's supposed to face? No, Saint Denis. It was Saint Denis.
I don't think it's been officially announced yet. I don't know.
So type that up in the meantime. I think it's Saint Denis and Dustin Poirier. I don't know which card that's on, but as far as the Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje, man, I don't think it's going to be a good deal for Max Holloway. We kind of seen how the story played out in the past when he faced Poirier at lightweight. He got washed. I mean, he showed heart because he didn't get finished, but he just got outclassed, and that weight difference ended up, proving to be the difference. So it's gonna be fun, but Justin Gaethje is the most violent guy in the division. I mean, if you're Max Holloway, I applaud you for trying to take the fight, but it's gonna be a long night. I don't know how you feel about it, Steve.
Definitely. His skill set as far as Max Holloway, it definitely works for featherweight. You're in that class, it's your frame. You stick a jab or a hook, people react. But something with Max Holloway, especially when you get to that Poirier size and Gaethje's around that same size, them dudes ain't reacting to what he does to those featherweights. And you pop that jab, Gaethje, or what we saw Poirier, he's taking it, and you seeing he's tearing his damn face up the whole fight, and damn near he has to take like a 6-9 month layoff. He's taking a lot of damage from every time he went up to lightweight. If he did once, I think he has a problem with Gaethje because he throws more oomph as far as Justin Gaethje. And Poirier does too, but I think Gaethje's on another level of countering.
Yeah. Did you see which card that
Poirier Saint Denis is $299.
Okay, so it's a card before. For some reason, I thought it was 300 as well. Yeah, both of those intriguing fights. I don't know where you put that on the card. That's got to be probably like the third to last fight. The 300 just shaping up to be a weird card.
Yeah, I mean, Dana White's promising, it's the big card. It's going to be a hot one, and I mean, it's just turning out to be another card so far. Of course, I want to see Gaethje and Holloway fight, but there's nothing that Holloway has for Gaethje at all, especially being undersized like that. Like, Holloway does everything good, but Gaethje is a great striker, a hard striker, and I think that's just gonna, put him away. I think you're gonna see Max Holloway get put away 1, maybe 2 rounds.
And he's naturally a wrestler, which he doesn't do a lot of lately. Gaethje, and he hits hard. And Max Holloway, he's a accurate striker, volume guy, but he's not a one-punch knockout guy. Even though I think he did one-punch knockout the Korean Zombie in his swan song, but that was an exception to the rule. Like I said, it's probably gonna be a long night for Max Holloway out.
It's such a weird matchup to put for the BMF title that's supposed to be the violent tough guy title. Like it's a weird offset for that matchup.
Well, I think they do have the right type of people for that fight because Max Holloway is tough as nails and he's a scrapper. But I just think it's a bad matchup for him.
I mean, Holloway's never been knocked out, so
well, it's the first time for everything. It might be time for him to go night with Gaethje.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll keep an eye out for what happens with 300. But like you said, we're finally starting to see how this card forms, and they need to announce like a big splash. And I'm hearing rumblings of Israel ending his sabbatical a little bit earlier and facing the winner of the fight we'll talk about later. That's cool. Adesanya he's like on the precipice of being a household name, but I don't think he's quite there. But that's definitely an intriguing fight for him trying to get the belt back. Y'all think we do see like a Brock Lesnar there though?
I've heard rumors that they're trying to get Brock Lesnar over, especially with that, WWE, UFC kind of combined under the same company. They've got to do something big. I mean, even if you do put a Izzy against Strickland or BDP, that's not a UFC 300 headliner. That's a headliner. It's a good co-main event, but like they need somebody. I'll just say it. They need somebody that is not in the UFC to come back to get the type of hype that they want. They need a Brock Lesnar. They need a Khabib. They need a GSP. John Jones magically healed, ready to fight. Something like that. To headline it. Like you can't just have your regular guys.
What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, and it's starting. There's only been 2 of these so far, but it seems to be the pattern is the decision now as far as the third one. Are we going to have a pattern of bringing somebody out the all-star team or retirement team that we would like to see watch and making that culturally done every 100 UFC cards? And since the last 2, we had Brock Lesnar. I wonder if they go out their way to do it again. It'd be nice to be anticipating fighters like Brock Lesnar or somebody legendary that we would like to see and start making that a pattern. But from what it's looking like, and I don't want to make assumptions, but putting Jim Miller on there, and it seems like enough time, months out for the next his next fight, but it seems like putting a rush of these fighters that just fought just seems like there's some urgency to get this card on. And it seems like the stars aren't aligning. I look all in the past, it's like there was people available, Conor McGregor, John Jones. Where's our superstars now? And none of them are available. So they almost have to put 2 champions or maybe 2 extraordinary fighters we're looking at just to make up for one extraordinary fighter, if that makes sense. Because it's not lacking, but there's not that, oh my God, and Conor McGregor and Brock Lesnar. Everybody's willing to watch them people, and I don't think we have that.
Right. Like like you said, they're doing this turnaround. People that just fought, they're throwing on there. We were talking about UFC 300 3-4 months ago, and I've been saying they need to start build this card, and it's like somebody at the UFC dropped the ball and didn't realize it was coming. Like they should have had a lot of shit in place and set up. We shouldn't be a couple cards away wondering who's going to be on it. People need to buy tickets, hotels, like make arrangements, and they just seemed to like they didn't even think about it. The one rumor I did hear for a big comeback, I heard they offered Ronda Rousey $15 million to fight Miesha Tate at 300. She turned it down.
That's foolish for her. You're not gonna get a payday like that. Even in wrestling, you're not gonna get a payday like that. She's just probably scared to get embarrassed. I mean,
and she's already beat her twice, though, right?
Yeah, she's beat her twice, but I think she's got, she's in her head, and she's got those ghosts of getting knocked out twice in her head. But she probably could beat a Miesha. There, she's younger than Miesha. Why not take that bag, a $15 million bag, if that's true? That might just be a rumor. Yeah, that's just foolish of her. I don't know if you'll see a big payday like that, because she tried the acting thing and she wasn't that good at that. So I doubt she could get a bag in Hollywood like that. Yeah, Ronda, you better reconsider that and hop on.
You're into the wrestling side of things.
Mhm.
Is there anybody else under the WWE banner that could come over and headline that other than Brock Lesnar?
I don't know about headline, but to boost that card up, you could get a Bobby Lashley on there.
Or what about, isn't there a Paul brother signed to WWE?
Logan is, but he's never done it, my man. I mean, you could do that as a circus fight. I know Jake is training. He's in the PFL. He signed to the PFL. He hasn't fought yet. He's training for it, but him and Dana don't like each other. For some reason, Dana and Logan have a friendly relationship. I don't know why. Like, if you don't like my brother, then it's fuck you too. So it's maybe
Right.
maybe it's all for show. Him and Jake Paul, Dana and Jake is all for show, and maybe they are friendly behind the scenes. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I don't know. They got to come up with something to headline that. They need a blockbuster. I don't care if it's a circus fight. So bring somebody back. I mean, it's got to be bigger than what it is. I remember where I was UFC 100. Like I shut down the whole day. I was like, I'm watching this tonight. Like it was a all day thing leading up to it. Same for UFC 200. It was the hottest thing going. Like everybody that I knew was going to watch that fight at the bar. Like this is just another card right now.
I think you may have to pull what about a Brock Lesnar versus a Stipe. I know Stipe wants that title fight, but you're Dana, you're like, this doesn't affect your title shot. This is just a fun fight. That would move the needle, I think.
Oh, now that we're talking about it, I seen something come across my feed about Aspinall fighting somebody. Have you heard anything about that?
I think I saw him maybe fighting a Stipe for the interim title, but I don't know if that was just a rumor or not. Or maybe him
No.
fighting Jones.
No, it wasn't Stipe or Jones. It was somebody with not as big of a name.
Was it Almeida? I can't see them doing that.
Yeah, I think it was.
Mm.
I can't find anything on it now. It might have been some troll shit that I seen.
Might have been a troll, because I don't see why you would have them fight so soon, because you're banking on them to be the next big things in your division. You wait until that fight builds up a little bit more. But they need to do something, man, because like you said, April's right around the corner. It'll be here before you know it. And right now the card is mid, but we'll keep our eye on what happens. But what was on your radar, Steve?
Well, that was what it was, the Holloway. But I had something in mind and just slipped out of my damn head.
Well, if it pops back in your head, make sure to bring it up before we close the show. But
definitely.
Let's hop into this card this weekend. What, you saw something there, Meyer?
John Jones had a surgery the other day, another one on his elbow.
Really?
So don't expect a surprise return from him.
Hey, man, Father Time is undefeated. You get nicks and bumps and bruises as you get older, and He's 36, but he's been fighting in the UFC since he was like 22. So hopefully he'll heal before the year.
Probably damage that elbow bouncing it off Matt Hamill's head.
Yeah, still lingering from that. He's finally getting that corrected. Those 12 to 6 elbows ain't no joke. But we got a fight card this weekend, fellas. UFC 297.
I remember, if you want me to interject real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we talked about it real shortly. Figueiredo and Cody Garbrandt. I think that would be a interesting fight to look at. And obviously, where Figueiredo, he won his last fight as a former champion coming into bantamweight, I think it would propel Cody Garbrandt into where he needs to be as far as getting back on track.
I thought they announced that, but it's not shown on the official UFC 300 card. Oh yeah, it's confirmed.
Yeah, and I think one of us may have predicted it. It might have been me. I said if he faces like a top 10 guy in the division, he might propel himself back into the mix of things. And I think one of us may have even said him and Figueiredo could be a fight that they do. And looks like they signed that. An early prediction of this fight or early outlook. I don't know, man. This fight could go either way. If it were any other bantamweight, I would say Cody Garbrandt probably gets washed, like any top 10 guy. But we know Figueiredo's coming down from flyweight, so we only seen him in one bantamweight fight so far of late. I don't know if he fought bantamweight early in his career, but I don't know, man. This fight could go either way, so I think it's a good matchup. Like if you get washed,
I like it.
Yeah, if you get washed if you're Cody Garbrandt, man, I think it's it for you. But if you win, you'll be right back in the mix of things. And we all know if you just talk a little trash, you may be able to talk your way in a fight with our bantamweight champion now, Sean O'Malley. And who knows what happens with him when he fights. Was that March? That's a March fight, I guess. That's 299 O'Malley, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the featherweight titles next month with Alex the Great. So yeah, I guess I feel like it's all like jumbled up. We got like good fights on this card, good fights on that card, but they didn't get. They should have just put all the chips in for UFC 300, but it's all spread out, which is weird. But yeah, we'll see how things shake out. But let's talk about this card this weekend, UFC 297, coming from Toronto, Canada, in the Scotiabank Arena. And like we always do, let's go through these early prelims. We have Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick in the flyweight division. Women's flyweight, we got Jasmine Jasdabovicius versus Priscilla Cachoeira at women's flyweight. And then welterweight, we got Johan Lannes versus Sam Patterson. And then we move on to the normal prelims. We have women's strawweight, Jillian Robertson versus Polyana Viana. And at bantamweight, we have Surrey City versus Ramon Taveras. And then at featherweight, we have Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. And to cap off the prelims, we have a former tough winner, two-time tough winner, Brad Katona versus Garrett Armfield at bantamweight. Any of these fights pique y'all interest?
Nothing really sticks out to me as a must-see.
Steve?
Nothing. No, nothing. The one that's recognizable, which not as popular, but I've seen a Priscilla Cachoeira. I'm not too interested in that. So no. Is Ramon Taveras Brad Taveras' brother?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Maybe. But
Question. I've seen his name is Taveras.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You have to look that up, but I think I'm intrigued by Brad Katona because I watched his last Ultimate Fighter he was on. He was on this past McGregor season, and this is his second time winning Ultimate Fighter, which you really don't see people on the show twice all that often. And he won there, so see what he could do. But yeah, like these prelims and these early prelims are pretty underwhelming as far as name value goes. But as we've seen in the past, a lot of those times, that's when all the bangers happen when you least expect it. So I'll keep my eye on it and see how that unfolds. But let's get into this main card, fellas. And this is the first card we're predicting this year. And so we're going to reset from all our prediction records from last year. And we all know I'm the champion of 2023. So if I won, I get to hold on to this bad boy for the year. Let's see who could take this off of me. We're gonna reset, and maybe we'll get producer Jay's prediction off air too. Keep up with him, but let's see if somebody could take this off of me this year.
Man, hopefully get them rubies on there, each one too.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start off with the curtain jerker of this one. We have in the featherweight division Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev. What do y'all think about this one?
Arnold Allen, he's a good fighter. But Movsar, one of them Russians, undefeated. I mean, lately it's hard to bet against any of the Russian, Dagestani, that area of fighters, man. They're just all coming in and so highly skilled. It'll be a pretty decent fight, but I mean, as far as my pick, I got to go with Movsar. Undefeated, stays undefeated.
Admire has Movsar. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I'm looking at the fight history, and looks like dude's no joke. Looks like Allen, he fell short with Holloway, but that's almost a given. So it's trying to see a real comparison on who's the more superior fighter. It seems like I said, man, Russia lately has been winning. And this dude looks like who he's been fighting. Lopez is a good fighter from what I've seen him. And, of course, Dan Ige. It's almost a gatekeeper, but a good one. And Daewoo, I think I remember him fighting. He took care of him pretty good as far as unanimous decision. I might go with Movsar. I think he might win this.
So, Steve, you have Movsar as well. I'm gonna go with Movsar. Like Admire was saying, he's a wrestler, undefeated, fighting out of ATT in Florida, so we know how they get down. I just think he goes to his bread and butter, just to take down, and however he wants to finish the fight, he'll finish that fight. So looks like all three of us have Movsar. Let's go to this next fight in the middleweight division. Chris Curtis, a friend of the champion that's going to be fighting in the main event, versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Thoughts on this fight? I'll start off with you, Admire.
This is another one. It should be good. Marc-Andre coming off a couple wins. Chris Curtis, I think he's very exciting when he fights. He's coming off a no contest. Before that, he had a loss to Gastelum, and then he had a win before that and a loss before that. So he's kind of back and forth. I think Chris Curtis is going to be fighting to keep his spot on the roster, where he might be getting in kind of the pink slip territory with another loss or two. So I'm going to have to go with Chris Curtis on this one.
Wow, so you think he'll be desperate to get a win? I mean, his last one was a no contest because of that clash of heads, which is unfortunate against Imavov. Then he lost to Kelvin Gastelum. He's been like trading wins and losses, but he's only had 2 losses in the past, like 6 or so fights. So he might not get cut immediately, but like you said, if he does lose, he'll be in danger of maybe losing his job. Or who you got, Steve?
I'll have to go with see, I can't even remember any Mark's fights, but okay, I think I remember in some of his fights. And he just fought Anders too, so I definitely remember. This I think I'm gonna have to go with Curtis. Now I can't remember compilation of YouTube videos, and algorithm. I can't remember if Curtis had an injury. I remember seeing a video. I think he tore his pec too or something like that. But maybe this is a fresh back from injury, and I have faith in he's still up to par because I think he's a good fighter and beat a lot of skilled fighters so far up to here. So I think he can pull off that win, especially he's in there sparring with Strickland and that crew. I think he'll do well with this fight.
Yeah, he was supposed to fight back in September, but he had a rib injury.
That's what it was. Yep.
Both of y'all got Chris Curtis. I'm gonna go opposite of y'all. I'm gonna go with Marc-Andre Barriault. He's on that 2-fight win streak. Like Steve mentioned earlier, he got a win over Eric Anders, your boy, and I think the momentum continues on this card. So let me go with Marc-Andre on this one. Let's go to this next fight, the welterweight division. Neil Magny versus Mike Malott. And like we always mentioned earlier, Neil Magny, we're not trying to be derogatory, but Neil Magny is a gatekeeper in the welterweight division. It's not a bad thing. You can make a whole career being a gatekeeper, and you beat a lot of guys where they try to test you and see if the younger guy can get over on you. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. He's making his money, and he's still in the UFC. Let's see. With Neil Magny, he lost against Ian Gary. He also won against Philip Rowe, but then he's like trading loss and win and loss and win. And that's like almost the definition of a gatekeeper. Because before the Rowe win, he lost against Gilbert Burns. Then he beat Daniel Rodriguez, and he lost against Shavkat, but everybody loses against Shavkat. What are your thoughts on this, Amir?
Man, I'm kind of torn on this one. On one hand, you do have Neil Magny, the gatekeeper, and he's been alternating wins for a while, and he hasn't lost back-to-back fights since 2013. So it's been 11 years since he lost back-to-back. In his last fight, he lost. So by the math, he should win this one. But, Malott hasn't really beat any big names. I mean, he beat Mickey Gall, but other than that, he really doesn't have anything. And Magny, he went the distance to a decision with Ian Gary, who's supposed to be, he's pretty hyped right now. I got to take Neil Magny, man.
And Mickey Gall, we all know him from facing CM Punk. I didn't realize he was still in the UFC in the year of 2022. That's when he fought Mike Malott. Go figure. I didn't even know that. But you're taking Neil Magny. Who you got, Steve?
Yeah, I told myself there's a few fighters that I know that are gatekeepers, and I told myself I'll never have faith in these bums again. I always ever had faith in winning, but I guess Neil Magny has a chance to cross over from the shadow realms he's been from, at least for me, and I'll give him a chance to win this fight, because just looking at this dude, Mickey Gall, these fighters, I don't think they're as skilled, and I'm gonna rely on his skill set, which I think I said last time, as a veteran to win this. I 48% chance. I think that Neil Magny would win, but I'll give that chance because just the odds I see. Not to totally shit on his name, I think he has enough skill to pull this off.
So you're going to go with Neil Magny?
Yes.
Us? Well, this first pay-per-view of particular year, this is y'all chance to get a jump on me because I am not going with Neil Magny. Mike Malott is on a 6-fight winning streak. Like Amar said, it's not a whole lot of notable names on that list, but I don't know, when you're on your roll and you got that confidence in yourself, I think that rubs off. So I'm going to go with Mike Malott on this one to take that win. Let's move on to the co-main event, fellas. For the vacant women's bantamweight title, we got Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva. Admire, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Man, I love Raquel Pennington, but I gotta rock with Silva on this one. She's on a good win streak. She beat some decent names. Her last win, she did beat Holly Holm, which was overturned to a no contest. She tested positive for some kind of acid, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't think it was due to anything performance enhancing. And Raquel Pennington, I mean, how long has she been around? I mean, she's been fighting since
forever,
like 2012 or something, and then she came to the UFC in 2014. But she is on a win streak as well. But I just, man, yeah, I gotta go with Silva.
Okay, Amaya Silva. Steve, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I'm going with Silva myself. I think last time I chose Raquel, what was her last title fight against?
It was against Amanda
Nunes back at 224.
Yeah, and although that's Amanda Nunes, I felt like when she fought, it felt like all the tricks were out of the bag, or she just totally everything went out the window on trying to fight Amanda Nunes, and it seemed like she gave up when she didn't have an answer. As I remember Buena's last fight, she was pretty technical and on point. And if I can remember the significance of Raquel's last person she fought, let me see real quick. Yeah, it's Vieira, right? And
yeah,
she's a good fighter, but not. It's like all these people are gimmies. She's bought, and I even include Vieira, although she's a skillful fighter in that category. I think, and almost her Buenas looks like the same, but I think as far as a caliber fighter, which I give Holly Holm was, I think we can see as far as on paper who's technically sound, which is Buena. Last time I saw Raquel fight, it wasn't to where she's dominating something or anybody that she shouldn't. She should dominate. So I think Buena's going to pull this off.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with both of you. I mean, Rocky Pennington, she's on a 5-fight winning streak, which is nothing to sneeze at. And she's got one finish in there, but she's not been known as like a vicious finisher. And like Amar was saying earlier, Silva has that no contest against Holly Holm, but if you watch the fight, we saw that she won it. And she's been finishing a lot of people she's going up against. Good on the ground. She's been subbing a lot of people. And I think the ground game comes into fact there. And I think Silva, that's how Silva gets the job done. And I think she'll be your new bantamweight champion. So all three of us got Silva. But let's talk about the main event. What everybody came here for. Middleweight division, your champion, Sean Strickland going against DDP. And nobody was really talking about this fight until they pan over into the crowd at UFC 296. And we talked about this on the last show we did. Sean Strickland politely moves. Was it Gilbert Burns' family? Or was it
Yeah, it was Gilbert Burns.
Oh, yeah. He politely moves Gilbert kids and wife over. And he proceeds to jump across and Falcon punch DDP, Dricus Duplessis, and go have an all-out brawl, and let's really ramp up the fight. UFC is gonna be showing this in all of the hype packages, even though they swear that they don't like this behavior, but they like it. So it's a lot of bad blood going into this. Are y'all hyped to see this fight before we actually talk about who y'all think are gonna win?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of buildup. I mean, like you said, I think Dana White knew exactly what he was doing, sitting them close together. They had to get some hype going for something, and that did it. I mean, as soon as that happened, what night was that? That was Leon Edwards. That was the night, and everybody said that was the best fight of the night. Strickland and DDP in the crowd. So it was all the talk. It stole the show, and they're both kind of shit talkers. They get to settle it in there. They get to fight each other. Whether you like him or not, Sean Strickland puts on exciting fights. DDP, I mean, once we get to our picks, you'll get to hear my opinion on him. But I mean, I think he's top tier.
Steve, you hyped for this fight?
Yeah, definitely for what it is, the hype behind it, the arguments and the fights in the crowd. I think it's gonna amp up the intensity of both fighters, especially for Strickland and his interviews with certain people on YouTube expressing why he's done it, where he comes from as a place as a child, and to blow up on him like that, it just makes everything interesting. And I wonder if they're actually going to put that in the promotion, like the bus. That'd be cool.
They will. We're going to see that crowd fight 1,000,000 times leading up to it.
Yeah, they're going to show that, because when that bus fight happened between Conor and Habib, they swear that it was unacceptable. They'll never show it, but once we got to the fight, they showed it in all the promos. So, like Am said, we're going to see it 1,000,000 times before the fight. But let's get into the nitty gritty. What are your thoughts on this actual fight and how it goes down, Am?
Well, man, as soon as you messaged me this morning, I've been thinking about it, and I'm just arguing with myself in my head about it. On one hand, Sean Strickland, I mean, I like him as a person. He's got a good backstory, where he came from, where he's at now. I like his I'll fight anybody attitude. Whether he wins or loses, he gives it his all. What he did to Izzy, we haven't really seen done a whole lot. We only seen it when Izzy was, kind of knocked out by Alex, and, when Izzy moved up. But, he was he dominated Izzy. On the other hand, you got DDP, who has a lot of tools, man. Like, this guy never went to a decision, has 2 losses on his record early in his career, and just been a wrecking ball since he came into the UFC. I like him too as well. I like the way he talks. I like the way he carries himself. I like the way he fights. I'm really torn on this fight, because when you see Strickland go against somebody that's really high skilled, he usually doesn't do as well. But then you have that Izzy fight, in the back of my mind, like, what if he puts the pressure on and, puts DDP in a place that we really haven't seen? So there's so many variables coming into this, and that's why I think this is just, it could be fight of the year. I mean, it has a chance of that. My heart says Strickland, but my head says DDP. I'm going to take DDP, and I don't like it.
So Admire has DDP. What say you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same way because for real, the only thing that Strickland got was that anomaly win, which gives him that would earn you 1 point, gives you 5 points, or like basketball, that's a 3-pointer right there. And you try to compare the people who they fought, and I say the real significant one that Duplessis has was the Whitaker one. And I think we have two fighters that really have faced mediocre competition until their last fights. And this one will decide that this one is a true one who's on top, whether if it's I think as far as who they beat already and how they came up, this is really the eliminator for the middleweight because they almost have the same lineage of fighters before they fought a Israel or a Whitaker. And I'm thinking on Strickland, if he's gonna throw them fights what he did before, the decisions, I don't see it. It's another decision. But I'm seeing in his last fight, because certain fights can transition fighters' mentality. And I wonder if he tapped into something as a new fighter winning that Israel, because we saw a whole different Strickland as far as all up in his face and almost has his reflexes on point. If Strickland doesn't tap into that, I think it can be an easy win for Duplessis. And then again, hopefully, maybe Strickland's emotions were totally different from when he fought Israel Adesanya. Maybe him being upset at Duplessis might throw his accuracy off. I don't know, but I like you said, Admire, my heart because of America and Strickland, what he fights for. I want him to win, but Duplessis tells me that he ain't had the belt yet. He's willing to take it, and from how he fought Whitaker and these other people, I don't think he's scared of these fights, especially Strickland. Maybe if it was Israel, he'd be more cautious, but I think he's not intimidated as he is with Israel.
Yeah. And I mean, I one thing we didn't mention either that could, I'm just saying could play a factor. They talk about how much Strickland does train, and he trains more than anybody else. But ever since he beat Israel, he's been on like every podcast. Like he's leaning into the fame side of it. Is he taking this stuff? Is the fight as serious as he should? Or is he just relying on his natural toughness? I don't know. So that's another thing that kind of weighed in on my decision is who's taking this fight more serious, and I think it's DDP.
Yeah, he's been kind of on that tour, that the champions take, where you're all over the place and everywhere. But Steve, you officially took DDP, or?
Yeah, I'll choose DDP. I don't want to. I think Strickland can win, but
man, I was thinking both of y'all would go with Strickland, so that was going to make my pick a little easier because Strickland showed a lot in that Israel Adesanya fight. But I don't know if he caught lightning in a bottle or if this is just the new Strickland and he's going to fight like that going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if Strickland, keeps the momentum going and wins this. But with that being said, I'm not. It's a tough one because, like I said, I think Strickland can win this, but I'm gonna go with DDP just because I gotta go back on your track record, and DDP's a finisher, man. And as impressive as that Israel Adesanya performance was by Strickland, it still went all 5 rounds. It still went the distance. So, go ahead, Steve.
And I was gonna say, give him the win. The fight was a fight, but I think the only reason why he was comfortable for the rest of the fight was when he blasted him in the face. I think round 2. If it wasn't for that, and then after that, Israel was pretty clean on not getting blasted again. So if he never would have got blasted, I don't think Sean Strickland would have had that momentum to believe in himself. He's going to have to establish respect early on.
Definitely. I think he's just going to have to approach it like he did that Adesanya fight and be in his face early, and that'll be the keys to success for him. But I don't know if we see that happen. But like I said, I won't be surprised if Sean Strickland wins this. So I'm picking DDP. I'm not confident on it, but I think DDP gets the job done, and he'll be your new middleweight champion. And maybe the stars will align, and maybe we do get DDP and Israel Adesanya at UFC 300, because we talked about on the show before that cringe post-fight interview they had with the N-bomb riddled. So they got a backstory on that one if that does happen. But like I said, Sean Strickland may retain, but that's why they settle it in the cage. And we'll see how everything plays out this weekend. But that brings us to the end of the show. And shout out to everybody at Belly Up Sports, and shout out to all the listeners and the viewers. And we will be back to recap this show next week. So be on the lookout for this show to drop on YouTube, and make sure to like and subscribe to the audio with all the major podcast platforms, and be on the lookout for all alerts on social media. But that'll do it for us here at Haymaker Combat Sports. Until next time, be safe out there. Later.
Hit the takedown, ground and pound, that was from the top. Heel hooking on one platter, leave you in the knot. Pound for pound, been the greatest, sitting on the top, and I'm